podcast. Now, something I've been thinking about recently is mentorship, and people have asked me about it in the past if I offer that sort of thing, and it's not something I have ever done, but it's something that I've been thinking about recently and thinking that I would like to do. Like, I would love to mentor younger designers, younger small business owners, and I've been having a little research and think about how I could do that. But I thought in the meantime, I would record an episode where I would share with you 10 lessons that I would share if I was mentoring you. So 10 lessons that I've learned in running my business that I would want to pass on to a mentee. And I thought this would make a fun podcast episode. And it was actually really interesting sitting down and writing what those 10 lessons would be and I guess picking them out. So this is probably gonna take me a while. So I'm gonna dive straight in and just get into these lessons. And I would love to hear if any of these resonate with you, if they are lessons that you would pass on as well, or if there's any that you think I've missed out, then I would love to hear those too. Okay, so the first one is to have an experimental mindset. Now, I think I realized this sort of quite early on in when I went self-employed. This idea that if I thought of everything as an experiment, I was much less sort of attached to the outcome and the results. So if something went wrong, or if a launch didn't go very well, or if I made a mistake, if I thought of it all as an experiment, then actually there was no sort of bad scenario because I was always learning something. I was always collecting data, I was gathering information, and then I was using that information to improve my business and to make it better. And so, yeah, having an experimental mindset has really helped me. And when you sort of start something and you're kind of like, well, I'm just going to see, I'm going to try this thing, I'm going to see what happens and see how it goes, that is a much better starting place than, okay, I'm going to do this thing and I want this to happen. And if it doesn't happen, then I'm going to be devastated. So, yeah, number one, have an experimental mindset. Number two kind of follows on from that, and it is to expect mistakes and learn from them. I think so often when we start a business or we run our own business, we have this real pressure that everything has to be perfect and everything has to be professional, and we, can never make any mistakes. We don't want clients to think badly of us. We don't want to mess anything up. We don't want to, publicly be embarrassed because we've made a mistake. And I totally understand. I think all of those feelings are very, very natural. But I think, again, another mindset shift that it's important to make is to remember that we are going to make mistakes. Like, we're just human, it's gonna happen. And I think if we're expecting it to happen, then again, it's like less overwhelming and less devastating when it actually does happen. And it will happen. It happens to everybody. I think one of the things, like one of the phrasings that I've heard, which I think is really helpful, is this idea of failing fast. So, like the faster you fail and you pick yourself back up and you learn from it, like the quicker you level up, you move through a difficult phase, there's something in failing fast and recovering fast. And I think that's one of the areas where the rejection challenge really helped me. It, forced me to fail faster than I probably would have done otherwise. And I learned a lot in the process. And I think the other thing to mention is that often we can let our mistakes derail us or send us into a spiral or, a wobble. But if we are expecting them, then I think it's much easier to learn from them and to not get completely derailed by a wobble or, by whatever's gone wrong. We were already mentally prepared that mistakes were going to happen. Okay, number three would be to find the joy and follow it. So there's definitely things in my business where I've been like, I don't know if this is a strategic decision. I don't know if this is a good decision, but this is something that I really enjoy. So I'm just going to pursue it and see what happens. And honestly, I think this has helped me stay consistent in so many areas areas of my business by looking for the joy. And then that consistency has really helped me grow my business. So I think the perfect example of this is this podcast. Now, for some people, they hate podcasting or they just don't really enjoy the process, or, there's elements of it that they don't enjoy. And I'm not saying that I love every element of it, but it brings me so much joy. And so it has made it so much easier for me to keep going and to stay consistent with it. And so joy is like a really big value for me in my business. Like I just figure, if I'm building my own business, I might as well make it as fun as possible. So I definitely look for ways to make things more fun, whether that's like setting myself challenges, creating content series, interviewing people for Instagram, buying myself a big green microphone, like whatever things for you that, bring you joy in your business, like pursue those, find those, because it will help you to keep going on those days where everything is feeling really tough. And there will be those days, even if you're pursuing joy, I still have days where I'm like, oh, I'm going to sack it all in. What am I even doing? This business is so hard. So pursue the joy. Then following on from that, and this kind of links, would be number 4, which is find what you can be consistent in. And I don't think it has to be everything. And I guess in my head, I'm mainly thinking of this in a sort of marketing perspective, but it could be in other aspects of your business. But I think in terms of like marketing yourself, like find what you can be consistent in. So I know for some people, like posting on Instagram is the thing that they're really consistent with. Maybe it's blogging, maybe it's YouTube videos, maybe it's one YouTube video a week, maybe it's a newsletter a week. For me, it's definitely the podcast. I mean, I think I'm fairly consistent in the other areas, but I am nowhere near as consistent as I am with this podcast in my other areas of marketing. And again, that kind of links back to the last point about finding the joy. I think the reason that I can be so consistent with it is because it brings me joy. I find it sort of quite easy. I love it. It's something that's very fun for me. But it might not be a podcast for you. It might be something else, but I would definitely encourage you to find something that you could be consistent in, because consistency really does help your business, and it helps your marketing, and it helps build trust. And often, you have to be consistent with something for a long time before you start to see like traction and momentum and things building. And so if you can find the thing that you can be consistent in, like you will see the benefits of that. I am sure of it. So yeah, that is number 4. Find what you can be consistent in. Number 5 is find a community. And this could literally be one person who you're good friends with, who understands your business, who gets what you're trying to do, and who you can vent to and share your struggles, share your wins with. Someone that you're not in competition with, but that is on a similar level of business to you, so that you can support and encourage each other. And it might be that you find a whole group of those people, which, if that's the case, absolutely incredible. And I know, like a lot of people potentially struggle with this. I think if there aren't people who live near you, I mean, it is quite nice if they live near you because you can meet up and go for coffee, but you can join an online community. So maybe it's something like being freelance or doing it for the kids or the best 90 days ever. I actually did a podcast episode where I went into more detail about all of those memberships. So I'll link that in the show notes so you can find out more. But yeah, find people who you have stuff in common with, who are willing to chat about your business with you. I mean, everyone's different, but my support system looks like a handful of friends who I pretty much voice note daily, and I can chat to them about all aspects of my business, and they do the same back to me. And it feels very balanced. It feels like we are, absolutely mutually benefiting from the friendship and from the community aspect. And it's really supportive. There isn't any competition there. We're cheering each other on. We're sharing information. We're giving each other advice. So yeah, try and find your community. And it might take a while before you find that person, but when you do, honestly, it is like a superpower in running a business. So keep looking, even if you don't find it straight away. Number 6, commit to learning new things. I think sometimes we can get a bit sort of stuck in our ways, or we're like, oh, we've been doing this for ages and we just don't really think about it. I think having a sort of learner mindset, always acknowledging that there's more to learn, there's ways that you can upskill, there's new tech, there's new developments. Just be open to learning things all the time. I actually get so excited about learning new things. I mean, sometimes I resist it when I'm stuck in a particular workflow and I like the way I'm doing it. But when I do embrace learning something new, it's just like I feel so proud. I feel really excited. I feel, like it's just so healthy and also so vital if you're running your own business. Things change so much. The number of times in the last sort of 6 years that people have had to pivot or learn a new bit of tech or set something up on a different tool, we're constantly having to learn new things. So I think if you can have that mindset and you can actually pursue, learning new things, be really actively looking to learn new things, that is only going to be a positive thing for you. Okay, number 7, hold on to things quite loosely. I've definitely found this with goals, for example. In the past, I've made goals, and if I hold onto them too tightly, it has caused me problems. And often, what I have noticed happens is other things come along that are more exciting or a better fit for me or bigger than the things that I had dreamed of. And so by not holding onto them too tightly, holding onto them loosely, then it's very easy to let them go and pursue the more exciting or the bigger opportunity that comes along. And I think this kind of links back a little bit to having an experimental mindset. We don't want to hold on to anything too tightly, so that if we do have to pivot, or if we do discover a new goal that we want to pursue, it's not too hard to let go of the thing that isn't serving us anymore. So yeah, don't hold on to anything too tightly. And I think sometimes we can be guilty of just, being a bit too slow to let something go that we need to let go. And there's going to be so much wisdom there, because sometimes, even when you're not feeling it, you're going to have to be consistent and keep showing up for something. And then at other times, you're just going to have to accept that that wasn't the right thing for you and just let it pass you by and move on to the next thing. Okay, number 8. Remember that you get to define what your success looks like. And I think this one has been a huge one for me. I have been very susceptible to listening to all the noise online about what success looks like. And what the people online will often tell you is that it looks like a certain income amount. It looks like going on holiday to a certain place. It looks like owning a certain car. It looks like living in a certain area. And actually, none of those things feel like success to me. What actually feels like success is having flexibility, being able to spend lots of time with my kids, being able to pay for nice things for my kids, even things like being able to go out and get a coffee. That feels like success for me, and that is the sort of life that I want to build. And so I think it is really helpful to actually sit down and think about what success looks like for you, because since I have done that, I am much less likely to get sucked in by some narrative on the internet, like you're only a successful designer if you're earning 10k a month, or apparently some people are saying you should be earning 100k a month. And honestly, I don't know who's doing that. I mean, I'm definitely not, but that isn't what I'm looking for. That isn't what success looks like for me. And since defining that, I can shut out that noise of what everybody else is defining success as and just focus on how I have chosen to define success. And as a result, it's helped me feel really successful. And I don't really care if anybody else thinks I'm successful or not. I feel successful, and I think that's the most important thing, and that does wonders for my mental health, how I feel about my work, my motivation, all that sort of thing. Okay, number 9, don't get obsessed with money goals. Now, I'm not saying they're not helpful. I think sometimes it can be really helpful to set yourself a goal of how much you'd like to earn, and it can give you that push that you need to reach the goal. But one of the things that I found, and again, this links to the sort of you get to design success point just previously. When I was first starting out in, fully going for it with my own business, I joined some group coaching calls. I joined some, did some one-to-one coaching, and I kind of got fixated with trying to get a certain amount of monthly income. And then on the months that I didn't reach it, it was really, really disappointing. And actually, when I stopped fixating on that, or I stopped obsessing with those figures, I actually surpassed them quite easily and without even noticing. And I'm not saying it's not helpful to track your numbers. Like, I think it is really helpful. I think I need to do it more. I almost swung too far the other way, where I just started ignoring my numbers completely because I'd got unhealthily obsessed with the numbers. So you kind of need to find the right balance for you. But I would say, don't get too fixated on just some like random financial goal that basically someone online has set for you. Make sure that you think about the amount of money that you want to earn, like what is achievable, what feels like a nice stretch, for you to work towards. Just don't get sucked in by what everybody else is doing. And, potentially don't feel like you have to set yourself a very particular goal if you don't want to. So yeah, don't get obsessed with money goals would be my advice. And then my final one, number 10, would be learn to celebrate other people and their successes. I think so often we can sort of carry over this competitiveness from school, where we were often like pitted against each other and we wanted to try and prove that we were good and that we were the best. And I think sometimes we take that into business with us. And it means as a result that we're not very good at celebrating when someone else does something well or does something that we want. And I think one of the mindset shifts that has been really, really important for me is to remind myself that if someone else has done something that I want to do, that it's not like a limited amount of like that thing that's available. Like, I can do it too. So just because someone's done something that I want to do, it doesn't mean I then can't do it. And actually, it's really helpful to see other people doing the things that you want to do, because it shows you what's possible and it inspires you. And I think if you can get to a point where you're not thinking from a place of lack, but you are thinking from a place of abundance and there being enough for everybody, then I think that will really serve you well. And I think there's something really beautiful in being able to celebrate someone else getting something or doing something that you really want. I think, yeah, that is special. And I've definitely, had to work through that when friends have had opportunities that I would have loved. But I want to show up and I want to be a good friend and I want to be a supportive business owner and I want to support other small businesses as well. And so I want to show up and I want to be their biggest cheerleader. And so cheering others on is something that's really, really important to me. And I feel like it has helped me so much. Again, like mindset wise, mentally, it's just made me feel so much better when I am cheering others on, and also that they then feel like they can cheer me on as well, because we're not in this like really awkward competitive space. So yeah, those are my 10 lessons that I would share with you if I was mentoring you. I hope you found them helpful, and I would love to hear what you would share if you were mentoring someone else. Pop below the YouTube video or message me on Instagram and let me know what that lesson would be. You can come and find me on Instagram, or I'm at Liz M. Mosley or at Building Your Brand Podcast.